See, now you're free. You no longer have to sin. Even that nagging sin, that difficulty that you have in your life is not in power over you anymore. That vestige which is not operative anymore of that sin nature, that flesh, doesn't have control of your life anymore. You don't have to give in to it, because as believers, we have freedom. We have been set free from the bondage that we have been in to be able to do what is right and good and decent and loving and careful and all those attributes that God has said in His Word. Galatians 3:13 says, Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us. For it is written, curses everyone who is hanged on a tree. And we have in Romans 6 and 7, for we know our old self was crucified with Him in order that the body of sin might be brought to nothing, so that we would no longer be enslaved to sin, for He who had died has been set free from sin. We're free from sin. We have freedom, and we should not use our freedom as a cover-up for evil anymore. We don't have to do that anymore. Romans 6:14 says, for sin will have no dominion over you, since you are not under law but under grace. Verse 17 and 18 of Romans 6. But thanks be to God that you who were once slaves of sin have now become obedient from the heart, from the heart to the standard of the teaching which you were committed, and having been set free from sin, have become slaves of righteousness. See, God set you free for a reason. He set you free not to use your freedoms as a cover-up, but to live as servants of God. To live as servants so that people will know who your God is. So we live as people who are free. But it's really bad when Christians have to cover up and use their freedom to manipulate others, to manipulate things that shouldn't be manipulated. We don't have to cover it. Let me tell you, if you have guilt this morning over something or anything in your life, what's the first reaction that we've been taught to do? What do? You hide it, don't you? I'm the same way. We like to look good. We try to hide it. But where else should we be able to find mercy other than the church? I mean, we all know who we are, don't we? You who are believers. You know the depths of the sin in your life. You know what you've committed. You know how you've affronted God. And you know the struggle and the warfare that is still going on in your life, because that old flesh, which spelled backwards canceled out the H, is self. That old self, that old nature, that old idea is no longer operative in your life. It has been crucified in your life and no longer rules and reign, and you have been given a nature that is obedient and desirous of God. But that flesh still exists. But you are free from that master that would cause you and command you and enslave you to do the things that are hurtful and harmful to you, namely sin. Jesus said in John 8, verses 31, if you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And the Pharisees who were there and the Jews who were there answered him, we are the offspring of Abraham. We've never been enslaved to anyone. How is it that you say we will become free? See, they didn't understand. They were enslaved, but they didn't know. So here he's saying, listen, don't use your freedom to fall back in the way that you used to live your life. Don't use it that way. Don't do the things that you used to do. You know, one of the things that I found out when I was coaching baseball is that I had two boys. And those boys, if you put them together, you know what would happen? They would be fighting in a matter of 2 or 3 minutes. You had to put one in the front of the line, one in the back of the line. Or you had to separate one over here and one over there when we were doing drills, because they would always get into scuffles or fights, or they would be ignoring you, so I had to separate them. I had to separate them because they would just do childish things. And what we usually do is we fall back in those childish habits, don't we? We fall back into the things that we used to do when we were unbelievers, or all of a sudden we get tired of the Christian life and these practical things that we're supposed to do and to live and to believe. We fall back into it. We're like children that likes to antagonize each other, and we don't offer mercy. We don't do things, and we hide things and cover up things that are evil for evil. But we should be living as servants of God. He says, honor everyone. This is the way you do it. Use your freedom to honor everyone. Respect everyone. Don't say things that are just outright mean about people when you know that they're not true. That goes whether it's written or verbal. Honor everyone. Love the brotherhood. You know, we should love each other that much more. You know, sometimes you look across the room and you say, man, I don't know if I could love everybody. I have found in my years of being a Christian that there are people that have, for me it takes extra grace. But I'm just as ugly. You are just as ugly as that person across the way. They may be different from you. We may be different from each other. We may come from different places and different backgrounds and have different customs and have different upbringings. But you know the great thing about the Church of Jesus Christ? He unites people that would not normally be together into one body because of His grace and mercy through the cross. Amen. And so these things are important for us to know. We to honor, love the brother, fear God. Not be scared of God, but fear God. Don't want to disappoint God and honor the emperor. So we should separate ourselves for honor's sake, subject ourselves for the fool's sake, submit ourselves for freedom's sake, and serve our masters for endurance sake. Look what it says here. It says, servants, be subject to your masters with all respect, not only to the good and the gentle, but also the unjust. This goes with all authorities. And the service-master relationship is basically an employer-employee relationship. It's not really talking about, see, one of the things that people do is they look at the Bible and they say, hey, the Bible talks about slavery, and so it must be the type of slavery that was back in the 19th century of American history. It's not talking about that. In fact, you could go, I could give you one verse that says that enslavement ultimately like that is wrong. In 1 Timothy 1:10 it says, the sexual immoral, men who practice homosexuality, enslavers, liars, perjurers, and whatever else is contrary to sound doctrine. It talks about that as sinful, that slavery and enslaving another person is sinful and wrong at all. But these people were not enslaved because of that. Now, some slavery back then was cruel, was sinful, was wrong. But the Bible is saying here, it says, listen, be subject to your masters. This is how you live the Christian life with all respect. Not only the good, it's easy to do it for the good, right? If they reward you a lot. But what does it say? It says also to the unjust. You don't think you're getting a fair treatment by your boss. You don't think you're getting a fair treatment by someone. You still submit yourself or subject yourself to your masters. You want to respect them, for this is a gracious thing. When you're mindful of God, one endures sorrow while suffering justly. You see, you can suffer in this life and take injustice in this life from your bosses. And this could go for any authorities. It just doesn't have to be this idea of the slave master, employee. It could be husband and wife. There are all sorts of applications to this because we live at a time where people want to demand their rights all the time. And what does this say? Don't demand your rights. Don't say that I have a right to this and a right to that and a right to this. Submit yourselves even to a man or a woman who you work for or you serve under unjustly. And it's a gracious thing. It's an evidence of God's grace in our life because one endures sorrow while suffering justly. For what does it credit you? It says, what it credit is that if you sin and are beaten for it, you endure. You don't get any credit for it because you got what you deserved. But if you do good and suffer for it, you endure, this is a gracious thing in the sight of God. It is God who gives those things to you. It is God who does those good things for you. You see, God is pleased when His people trust Him in the midst of suffering. In the midst of someone doing wrong to you, you have to realize that God is still the one in control of things, and He will bring about justice at His time.